Very much.
Let's now bring in Sean Spicer, the incoming White House press secretary. Sean, good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, guys. How are you? Thank you for having me.
We're doing well. I want to start with that Washington Post interview. Donald Trump talking about one of his big campaign promises to repeal and replace Obamacare. He said in this new interview that it's a lot farther along than most people realize. He says the plan is very formulated. This is the replacement. He says, quote, "We're going to have insurance for everybody," but later he says, "I don't want single payer." Isn't insurance for everybody by definition single payer?
What he said in the Washington Post article, Willie, was his goal was to get insurance for everybody through marketplace solutions, through competition, through bringing costs down, negotiating with pharmaceutical companies, allowing competition over state lines. There's a lot of ways that we can bring the cost and access to health care way down to ensure that people actually get additional plans to choose from, more doctors in the system, and health care at a much cheaper option than it is currently, which again I think is better for the consumer because it actually increases access, increases the options to care, and at the same time through that competition and marketplace access will drive the cost down.
But isn't this, Sean, an expansion of government health care, which has been against Republican orthodoxy, I guess, forever, to have the government take over the health care system? Doesn't it go further than Obamacare?
No, it's because I think what's missing right now is, number one, if you look at what Obamacare was supposed to do, it's called the Affordable Care Act. It was supposed to increase your plans. You weren't going to lose your doctor or your plan, and costs were going to go down. In fact, what's happened now is marketplace after marketplace, we've seen plans leaving. In many cases, consumers are left with only one option. The doctors that may have been part of that plan are no longer part of the plan. They can't access the plan that they used to have, and the costs continue to rise at a very, very high level. The competition is sorely missing. We're not negotiating with drug manufacturers to drive the cost down. We're not instilling a sense of competition to allow them to negotiate over state lines. There's a lot of things missing which by their very nature would drive the cost down. And the beautiful thing about someone like Donald Trump is that he comes in from a very successful business perspective. He knows how to negotiate great deals, and at this point he can now use his negotiating skills to benefit the American people and give them a much better health care system than they have.
Sean, let's talk about the latest battle we've just been reporting on between the president-elect and Congressman John Lewis. The president-elect attacking John Lewis's district, his service to this country. We're looking at 4 days to the run-up of the inauguration. Was this the proper way to handle this for the president-elect?
Tamron, I want to just take it back a step, Tamron, because I think, Congressman Lewis started this with your own Chuck Todd by saying that the election was illegitimate and that President-elect Trump was an illegitimate president. So let's see where it started, which is you have this icon of voting and civil rights, claiming that an election was illegitimate when there is zero evidence of that. Everybody has confirmed that the election was duly held. There was no tampering with anything. And to see somebody of John Lewis's stature and iconic nature who has worked so hard to enfranchise people and talk about getting people involved in our voting systems and talking about the integrity of our voting system, to then go out when the candidate of his choice doesn't win and try to talk about the delegitimization of the election is frankly disappointing. And on a day like today, where we're celebrating or observing the birthday of Martin Luther King, the reason, you're going to see today, President-elect Trump is going to sit down with Martin Luther King III and others in New York and have a conversation about voting, about bringing more on the legacy of Dr. King and how we can continue to pursue that under a Trump administration.
Sean,
those are the kind of things that we should be talking about. And frankly, it was some of the things that John Lewis talked about earlier in that interview about the legacy of Dr. King and the beauty of what he really wanted to achieve. So to see him go out and talk about the delegitimization of an election was disappointing.
Well, two things, Sean, here. We do know that intelligence has shown that Russia tried to interfere, which is the issue that Congressman Lewis took up. But you talk about who started it, which again would remind any parent of a schoolyard fight. Who started it first? Let's go to the latest battle with the outgoing CIA chief, where now you have the president-elect, in his own words, accusing John Brennan of being a, quote, leaker of fake news. If Congressman Lewis started that fight, what has the president-elect started with the intel community, and specifically this tweet accusing the head of the CIA, in the words, was this the leaker of fake news?
Well, let's back this up a little. Part of the goal of these intel chiefs is to come and give the president and the president-elect information that they need to guide themselves going forward, the key intelligence reports. And when you see someone like John Brennan, who's supposed to be giving information and confidence to the president-elect, go out and attack the president-elect and talk about his lack of understanding of Russia, when in fact he has a very, very poor record on not just Russia, but some of these key world affairs, and that there are questions about how certain information is getting out. Again, it was John Brennan, someone who the president-elect is supposed to be trusting, that came out and attacked him on his breadth and depth of understanding of Russia, which is unbelievable. The idea that you could question the president-elect's knowledge and understanding of Russia is pretty remarkable.
Sean, we have limited time. I'm sorry.
Depth on this. So,
does he believe he leaked that salacious memo, though? That's the question.
I think there's a lot of questions as far as how that thing got out and some of the information that got out and the context in which it happened. So I think there are a lot of issues, and when you see someone like John Brennan go out and publicly attack the president-elect of the United States and his understanding of a key issue that he has an unbelievable grasp on, right, it is disappointing that once again you've got these people. But make no mistake, Willie and Tamara, one of the things that's interesting about this president-elect is that he's not going to sit back. He's going to fight for America. He's going to fight to make sure that we reassert us around the globe. Right. And that American workers are put first.
And also, just on the last note here, willing to still fight television programming, including SNL. His tweets went from criticizing Brennan to SNL, and is that what we're, again, continuing to see?
Well, I mean, I would say that just before I let you go on now, what Saturday Night Live did on Tuesday night was disappointing. It was not funny. It was mean-spirited, and it's gone from being a show that you could sit back and get a good laugh out of to just being something that's frankly mean and bad television.
Incoming White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. Back to the NFL.